Well, we lived in community in Chicago when we were directors of the Student House, which was a program for the 7th and 8th graders, and partly for the 9th graders of the children of the ICA staff. And this was when the families were overseas, working in third world developing countries, and the children had been with their parents up through their 6th grade, or the equivalent of 6th grade, came back to do a rite of passage, coming of age journey after their 6th or 7th grade year, and then came to us and lived in their own mini community within the larger community, first in Chicago, and then later we moved the program out to the Seattle area, and it became the Residential Learning Center. Well, when we were in Chicago, Stan had already been director for a year, and so I sort of married into that position. And I was just sort of, I think, in a daze most of the time. There was so much going on. One of the stories I remember, well, one of the things that we did was deliver pizza flyers. We did what they called running Metro, and we would deliver these pizza flyers, some, or we would wrap up grocery store ad things, put a rubber band around them, and run down the streets and toss them up on porches, and it was often a race to see who could get theirs done first, and some of the kids tried to stash theirs in people's hedges and not run them and end up at the end, and sometimes we took them back and they had to do it over if we drove by and found the little stashes that they had done. It was constantly kind of riding a herd. But that was one of the things that we did to raise money, and I think the discipline of that, the hardest part for me, I think, was where does my responsibility to these kids end and where does my own life start? Because it was a 24/7, 12 months a year kind of job, and so you didn't really have much time off. And even in the middle of the night, sometimes you would hear sounds. And the one night I was talking about earlier, where the girls' dorm was right next to our room, and I heard activity over there, and I went next door. There was a locked door between the part of the dorm that had the girls in it and the part of the dorm that had the boys in it. And there were staff on both sides of the locked door. But I heard all this activity at 3 a.m. and I went next door, and 3 shiny little male faces looked up at me and said, "Hi, Carol." Leigh Foden, Daniel Roberts, and Robert Ennis. I've named you, you guys. As I recall, those were the 3. I know Leif because I continue to bug him about it. But you know, even your nights weren't very restful, and I can remember just sort of walking around in a daze a good share of the time. And since Stan had been there before, I just sort of figured he knew what was going on, and I was there to pick up the loose ends. So that was that. But I think I saw myself in that situation as the mother, just like I had with my own children, and figured these kids were missing their moms and dads. They were overseas.